The choice of Interlok as a literature book for Form 5 students, the upper secondary students in Malaysia, especially in the 3 states, I don't think it's a very good choice, first of all, because if you're talking about unity in the country, it has to be written by people who really understand how unity can take place. They have to understand the good points of every community and look at the positive things of the community, and so that the students who from another ethnic group would be able to appreciate the good points of another ethnic group. But the Interlok, what it does is, of course, it's a view of one writer. He can be a national literary laureate, it's okay. He has every right to write from his own perceptions. Now, his perceptions of other communities was looked at it from a Malay point of view, his point of view, because his knowledge of the others could have been very, very superficial. Although he himself had said that whatever he knew about the Indians that he used as a base for this particular novel came from one professor who was in the Indian Studies Department of University of Malaya in the 1960s. But whether that Indian professor really understood, or he was one of those who looked at all the Indian laborers as inferior, which is quite common among the Indians themselves, because there are different groups of Indians who never associated with the vast majority of the Indians who were in the labor force in those days. And many of them were lecturers in the University of Malaya Indian Studies Department. And I know that very well because I studied there. And we had people who never thought very highly of the Indian labor force. Now, if he had heard from some lecturer like that, or professor also, for him to base the whole story based on the way that professor had said that these people were the untouchables and so on, was, I think, based on his own perception and imagination. Now, if he had built his story based on that, from his point of view, that is good enough for his book. Maybe once in a while someone wants to read his book, that is all right. I don't think that anybody is going to be up in arms. That's why the book was written in the late 1960s. Until now, nobody brought up the problem. But to choose that as although it's an abridged student version, rewritten in many parts and re-edited by the Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka, it is now put as edisi murid for the students. But you'll find that many of his views about the Malay community has been properly edited. But when it comes to the Chinese or the Indian community, they did not do much editing. They left it as the views of the person who actually could not be an authority on the Indians or the Chinese. He is not an authority. But in that book itself has been divided into 4 different sections. One is the Keluarga Seman representing the Malays. Another one is the Chinese component. Then the Keluarga Maniam, that is supposed to be the Indian denomination. Then we have got the Interlok, that is supposed to convey how the 3 got together to form Malaysia. Now, the problem is, if that is selected as a literary text for all the students of various ethnic groups in a school situation of 17-year-olds, the people who selected, I believe, think that Abdullah Hussein's views represent the country's views, represent the nation's views. Now, then definitely it's a flawed selection, very flawed one, because that is not the reality. And especially when you portray especially the Indians, let us look at the Indian point of view. The Indian point of view, Maniam has been portrayed as someone who came from the untouchable caste. Whether the word pariah is used or not is not a problem. Whether we all know the word pariah is also found in a lot of dictionary, English dictionary itself. That word itself doesn't bring any connotation until it is now associated with Maniam, who symbolizes the Indians who had come to Malaysia, or to Malaya at the time. And then, from the literary point of view, any literature teacher will ask the question, if Maniam represents the Indian community in this country, what about his character? Can you define the character? Now, if a literary teacher teaches this, to students, the students are going to say, oh, Maniam comes from an untouchable caste, whether the word pariah is used or not is immaterial. And he came in his own country. He was not supposed to be, he was not dealt with as an equal. He was supposed to be the downtrodden person, and he came looking for some job and a livelihood in this country, and then suddenly he found all the people around him were all the same caste, and in other words all the untouchables, they ended up here, giving the view that the Malaysian Indians today actually came from that stock. And therefore when they came here, the people here, that the Malays actually took care of them and gave them the equal treatment, so they should be more thankful to the Malays here rather than their brothers in India who treated them very badly, and so they must be thankful today. And now the same thing goes to the Chinese also. They came looking for livelihood here and they cheated. These are the things written there. They cheated. They have got the Indians are supposed to be very talkative. They don't worry about their wives. Wives can go with anybody. These things are, if it is highlighted by the literature teacher, what are the actual attributes or the characteristics of the Indians, and the wedding ceremony is supposed to be tiresome. All these are unnecessary remarks made of the Indian community in this literature book. All these are going to create problems among student relationships. Even knowing the type of teachers we have today, I have been a principal, I've handled teachers, I've been a teacher handling students and so on. Now, my time, the teachers came from classes. They were orientated with multi ethnic groups. They were together. They studied together. They stayed together. Most of them were like that. There were very few who came from only one language stream. Today, most of the teachers who are literature or language teachers, or even decision makers at the ministerial level, they come from the mono stream, one language stream, and probably they went to school with only one category of students, one group of students, and then they went to universities with majority one group. And nowadays, even in universities, they stay only among themselves. They eat, drink, everything among themselves. Those people are now looking at it purely from one point of view. Now, that type of teacher gets this type of book, and he is already having a lot of misconceptions of other communities. He is going to really make it a game and tell everybody this is how it is, and he himself is going to be loaded with this type of perceptions, and the matter is going to be worse. And what happens is he is going to make matters worse by asking all the wrong questions, getting the ridiculous answers from students from other races towards a particular race. Like the Indians are going to be loaded with a lot of insinuations by the others, when the Chinese are also going to get that type of insinuation using this book, and all this is going to happen. And generally the Malays have nothing to worry, because most of the language and literature teachers are the Malays themselves, and if there is anything negative there, they know how to overcome it. But the Indians, especially Indians, very few are going to be teachers at that level. And the principals, I tell you, there is practically no Indian principal left anymore. In that case, you will find it's a heyday, and the students are going to be having a psychological impact. If the Indians are going to believe, I think if the people who selected, the panel that selected it purposely, because it brings it a psychological impact, so that the Indians and probably even the Chinese feel they have to be thankful to the Malays for having accepted them in this country, having come looking for livelihood, and therefore they should be thankful to the Malay community. That means Ketuanan Melayu indirectly. If that is what they are thinking at in the long term, then this book has probably been selected very purposefully, quietly select and put it, so that in the long term, the youngsters who come from these ethnic groups, as they listen to their literature teacher and all the others telling them, psychologically they are going to feel inferior, and this inferiority complex will have a very big say in the future of the communities in this country. And it is when we wrote even to the minister and all those, they didn't even want to answer. They to letters sent to them saying that we want to protest, that this book is not suitable, and the only thing they say it is portraying the reality and all those. But then, even if it portrays the reality, we have to look at the future unity. By portraying the negative aspects of any community, you are not going to bring in any unity. But definitely that community is going to be viewed as inferior, and that is never going to bring in unity in this country.